Hello once again, and welcome to another edition of the saskagtoday.com Roundtable. I'm joined by the 620 CKRM Agri News Director Ryan Young and Chief Agricultural Editor for saskagtoday.com, Kevin Hursh. I'm Doug Falconer, Agriculture Director at GX94 in Yorkton, and it's been another busy week, gentlemen. And first off, Ryan, you've done some work on the forecasted claim payouts that came out just on Thursday regarding Saskatchewan Crop Insurance Corporation.
Yeah, that's right. I had the opportunity to discuss that with the president and CEO of Saskatchewan Crop Insurance, Jeff Morrow, and they're forecasting payments to be around that $2 billion mark. That's quite actually a lot and a little bit higher from the 2022 amount in the ballpark of about 1.44 billion in 2022, so a little bit higher than last year. Most of this year's total, interestingly enough, is going to come from the 2023 crop insurance program. And at this point, about 30% of payouts through the crop insurance program have been paid out to producers. And I also talked a little bit about, asked him rather, about any of the other programs that, there might be payouts or anything like that. And he didn't really have immediate details or figures on that, but most of the $2 billion comes from the crop insurance program, about $1.85 billion, and then the rest of it through other programs like agri recovery, agri stability, the forage rainfall insurance program, and so on. So that's pretty much the latest on that with President and CEO Jeff Morrow.
Yeah, it's interesting to note that 1.85 billion of the total $2 billion of estimated business risk management money flowing to Saskatchewan is coming from crop insurance. And, that 30% is, I think, very much due to the fact they let producers take, if they wanted to, at least 50% of their estimated payout in advance. And certainly that's my case. We took 50% of the estimated payment right off the bat. I've had that for quite some time, still waiting for the balance to come forward. One thing I would note is that producers shouldn't rely on crop insurance to be as supportive in 2024. The prices we're seeing now for commodities are the prices similar to the ones that are going to be used for the forecast for crop insurance prices for 2024. So I expect coverage levels to be down quite a bit. We especially look at the slump in prices for things such as canola. And also those of us that have been in claim position for a number of years are going to see declining yield coverage, and also the possibility of increased premiums because our risk has gone up. But certainly very interesting how much support crop insurance has provided to the dry areas of the province this year.
All right, and another topic that came up this week was Bill C-234. Obviously, we talked in the past about how the amendments were defeated, but it's still languishing in the Senate for third reading. Your take on that?
Go ahead, Ryan. You've been following this one. I've been trying to keep up with it, but tell you the truth, there's been so many twists and turns in this. I don't know where the heck this is at.
Yeah, you're right indeed, Kevin. It's quite a maze to get through when it comes to the procedures as well as where it's at and all the debate. So the latest go around with regards to the bill, it was unfortunately still stuck in third reading. It was delayed to the next sitting, which will be sometime next week, I believe on Tuesday. But the means of which to delay it was a little bit interesting of note. A colleague of mine who's also been following these discussions, he's like, I've never seen anything like this before in terms of how the debate went, or apparently the lack thereof. So the senators, they were ready to debate the bill on third reading. However, one of the senators tried to pass an amendment. I'm not sure which amendment exactly. I believe it was with regards to the sunset clause, but that was quickly defeated. And then the senators were ready to debate, but then there was an adjournment, a 45-minute break. Some Tory senators were frustrated by that with the pause, like, let's get going already with this debate. Let's go. You want to have this? Let's do this. But unfortunately, After the break, there was a motion to delay it to another meeting, and it was passed by a slim margin of about 29-24. So I remember listening to an interview with Senator David Wells, and he was quite frustrated by the whole ordeal, and just basically wanting to get this process done and over with. It's been quite a long process. There was a previous attempt to get this passed in 2021 before it was defeated on the floor in the House of Commons when the election was called. So it's it's still going to be quite a while before this hopefully gets passed. Senator Wells is hoping it does get passed, as does the federal Tory ag critic John Barlow. He had similar comments, disappointed by the recent development, but hopes that the bill will get passed.
So this will, Ryan, be both the exemption of the carbon tax on natural gas and propane for grain drying, as well as for heating and cooling barns. It looks like it should all go through the way things are now.
Yes, as far as I can tell, the bill is in its original form and it's in the third and final reading. So whenever the senators decide to try and pass it along, and when it does, if and when it does get passed, it'll get passed in its original form.
All right, so stay tuned on that one. It's like a soap opera that runs on weekday afternoons. But anyway, also when it comes to barley, the latest barley export numbers are out, Kevin, and you had a chance to look at them, and it looks like Canada's not doing all that great when it comes to exporting barley these days.
Yeah, for a couple of years, we've had huge exports of Canadian barley to China, and really we've replaced the Australians. The Australians were in a dispute over China, a political thing that dates back to COVID. They finally ironed out their disagreements and smoothed that over, and now Australia is basically eating our lunch when it comes to exports of barley to Australia. So a couple million tons that won't be exported, that's going to sit here. Plus you've got American corn coming in many cases for some of the feedlots and Feedlot Alley. So we can expect quite a carryover of corn. Hard to believe that corn prices are going to be very buoyant in the months ahead.
All right, on that note, we're going to take a quick break, and the saskagtoday.com roundtable will return in a moment. And we're back with the saskagtoday.com roundtable. Doug Falconer here from Yorkton. Ryan Young is in Regina, and Kevin Hursh is our chief agricultural editor for saskagtoday.com. And Kevin, you've been doing a little bit of work on an interesting story when it comes to John Deere and Manette Farms. I guess I'm not sure exactly where Manette Farms is. Could you tell us where this is and what this is all about?
Well, Manette Farms is actually based out of Swift Current, Saskatchewan, but they own land in many locations across Saskatchewan. Probably one of the biggest farms. There's bigger landowners, but Manette Farms probably farms more ground in Saskatchewan than anyone else. Has a little bit of ground in northern part of Manitoba as well. Owns land in Montana, in Arizona, some vineyard stuff in BC. They're a big entity, also into some seed exports now, also into some cattle. And I ran into somebody in the farm equipment industry that said to me, how come it's never been reported in the mainstream media that John Deere sold equipment directly to Manette Farms, bypassing their dealership network? Well, he's quite right. This has been talked about in coffee shops and talked about on social media quite a bit. So I decided I'd look into it, and mostly, unnamed but reliable sources did give John Deere and Manette Farms a chance to comment. But yes, this is one of those deals where John Deere went directly to Manette Farms and said, "Hey, buy John Deere." "Oh no, we're Keith. We've always bought our equipment from Redhead Equipment." No, we can do you a better deal than that. So some 300 serial numbers of equipment, so combines, tractors, sprayers, whatnot. So a huge deal. And Manette Farms turned from red to green, although they do still do Borgo drills out of Redhead Equipment. And the dealership network is actually quite concerned about this. John Schmeiser, of the North American Equipment Dealers Association, says there's been a number of dealers express concern that they're being bypassed. Now, John Deere, for its part, it's the only thing that it would say is that dealers always have an opportunity to participate or not in these sort of deals. And my information was that there was a participation payment made to the dealerships that would be affected because they still have to do warranty work. But some dealers that are just worried that this might affect the dealership network going forward.
And have you heard from any other producers about this sort of thing? Like, is there, some people are jealous about it, or some people are just not happy that this sort of thing is happening, or what's the, I guess, the general feeling out there about this sort of thing?
Now, it's really interesting when you see a really big player like that switch allegiance, going red to green, and Manette being such a large player in the industry. The other thing that happened is that many of the dealers believe that their allocation of new equipment was reduced because Manette was getting all of this equipment directly from John Deere, and therefore they had to wait longer, and their producers had to wait longer for equipment because this deal took place in 2022 when the whole equipment supply chain was still recovering, and lots of producers had to wait for their equipment. But when you're the size and economic power that Manette Farms has become, they tend to stand first in line. They're the kind of farm that every manufacturer and every dealer would love to do business with.
Kevin, I'm kind of wondering, is there like any precedent to this? Do you remember in your years within the industry anything similar to this kind of happening where one dealer switch allegiances to another?
Well, I think that, certainly that, farmers are can quite rightly decide they want to switch allegiance, or many producers run a mix of equipment. In this case, some sources suggest that this was the first one-off deal directly from the manufacturer to a farmer in Canada, and there'd only been a couple of other cases like this in the US. So that is sort of setting precedent, but it was a case of John Deere with their acquisitions group specifically going after a big client and bypassing, or at least partially bypassing, their dealership network to do it, which is a different way of doing business. Some suggest that if you look not in Saskatchewan, but in Alberta and a number of US states, that this sort of direct deal from an original equipment manufacturer to a farmer would be illegal. But others say, well, there might have been ways to structure the deal where it wouldn't actually be offside for the law.
Interesting. We'll have to keep an eye on that as well to see if this sort of thing continues into the future or not. And Ryan, one other thing you wanted to talk about today was the ag in the classroom. I mean, it's been pretty vocal over the last few years about trying to get younger people into agriculture, and you did a couple of stories on it this week.
Yeah, that's right. One of the things was they announced a new executive director of Ag in the Classroom Canada. His name is Matthew Rouleau. I was talking to him a little bit the other day and just getting to know him as well. He grew up on a mixed operation. So it's a dairy, cash crop, and a maple syrup farm in southwestern Quebec. Not often you hear of maple syrup farms, especially around here. But he grew up on a farm. He has that farming background. He also has a bachelor's degree in agricultural economics, agricultural business, and agronomy from McGill University. So he's definitely got the credentials to be in this sort of role. And in talking with him, he also said he likes to keep busy and learn new things. And he believes that's a very important part of being the executive director, is that willingness to learn, the willingness to build relationships with other provinces, other peers. And that's part of his vision as well for Ag in the Classroom, is to get involved in every aspect of the agriculture industry and also bring in the territories. Currently, the organization has 10 member provinces, and they're looking to add the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut eventually. So we'll see where that goes. Very nice gentleman.
And Kevin, I'm sure you agree that ag in the classroom is pretty important.
Yeah, and oftentimes we end up dealing with the people at the local provincial level that do a lot of the work we see, but it's oftentimes you'll hear producers complain saying, why don't we get together and promote agriculture and explain to the consumer what we're all about, and quell some of these misconceptions. Well, I think agriculture in the classroom is the place where we should be investing money. I know there's a campaign whereby they're asking producers to donate 10 cents per acre, so that there's some money to go forward with, because resources are always a key consideration. But I think agriculture in the classroom has done very well.
Yeah, and the other thing that I wrote this week was on Ag in the Classroom recently partnering with McCain Foods as part of Career Month in Canada. And one of the feature events that they did with McCain was they did a virtual panel with about 75 classrooms, according to the interim executive director, Sarah Shimko at the time when I talked to her. There was about 3,300 students from across the country that participated in this. So it was quite the turnout. And she said from early comments and feedback afterward from the virtual event, it was pretty good. The teachers, they really enjoyed it. The students, they asked some really good questions to the panel. Of course, four McCain employees talking about their background, their experiences within the ag industry, and the opportunities that are available within the ag industry. So it was a really good event all around, and yeah, it was pretty good overall.
Sounds good. And I think that'll do it for this week's saskagtoday.com roundtable. On behalf of Chief Agricultural Editor Kevin Hursh and 620 CKRM Agri-News Director Ryan Young, I'm GX94 Agriculture Director Doug Faulkner, saying so long until next week.